she just said they were up here. I have. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
I hope everyone's doing well. It's awfully quiet in here, so if anyone has not taken the opportunity to turn to the person who's in front of you or next to you, behind you, to wish them a Shabbat Shalom, I hope that you will. Introduce yourself as well. Remember, that's sort of why we have the wonderful pre-neg out there, our shmooze and a nash, an opportunity to say hello before the service begins. And we can certainly thank Georgianne Godzi for our delicious spread today. So hopefully afterwards you'll have an opportunity to talk with one another again. We're going to begin with a song on our song sheet. Hopefully you were able to pick one up when you walked in.
Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. We continue singing together as we sing a song unto God, Shir Chadash. Shiru Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai kol haaretz, Shiru Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. So we sing unto God as we enter into this holy space together, pausing even just for an hour from our busy week. And as the light from the sun has certainly faded by now, we welcome in our Shabbat light and ask God to hear our prayers. Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you.
And now we prepare to light these lights of Shabbat. And I invite Rita Dashman-Rich to come forward and light our candles for us this morning, or evening. Beginning of the day, beginning of Shabbat, but end of the day. Amen. Thank you. We continue together with the words of Shalom Aleichem, which you can find on page 24 in your prayer book.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Vi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Borchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי העליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי העליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. מי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
We turn now to page 26. We continue with our Chatzi Kaddish.
ויתקדש שמי רבה ואלמד יברח יוטב ימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בקלה ובזמן קריב והימרו
Amen.
יש מרבה מברך לעולם לעל מעלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתבהר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו והלה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה והימרו Amen.
Please rise as we continue together on page 28.
Yael haylai, yaelai lailai, yaelai lailai lailai lai. Yaelai lailai, yaelai lailai, yaelai lai, yaelai lailai. Yaelai lailai lailai, yaelai lailai lailai, yaelai lailai lai. Yaelai lailai lailai, yaelai lailai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yaelai lai, yaelai lailai, yaelai lailai lailai.
We continue on page 30 in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uven laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch alenu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. On page 32, we read together, Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
seated. We continue on page 36 with V'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיית עטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה עליינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
ונאמר כי בדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Yisrael. The words for our Hashkivenu this evening can be found on your song sheet.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom, V'amidenu, Shomrenu L'chaim, Ufros Aleinu, Sukat Shlomecha, Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding shelter from life's storms.
Excuse me. We continue on page 45.
A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai, yai, lai, 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 Adonai,
Please rise.
Sfatai, Tiftach, Ufti, Yagita, Hilatecha.
Page 48.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanorach El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim וקונה הכל, זוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם וזרעת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated as we continue praying together on the top of page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. On 57, you are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levarecha b'yir'ah na'avod.
The words for Modim Anachnu Lach can be found on the back side of your song sheet.
Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach. We thank you, God, for all your gifts. Modim anachnu lach. Modim anachnu lach. Modim anachnu lach. We thank you, God, for all your gifts. Modim anachnu lach. Modim anachnu lach.
Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Page 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people, forever. For you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom.
We now take a moment for silent prayer and meditation.
As we transition to our Torah service, I invite those who are able to rise as we turn to page 244.
In kamocha Elohim Adonai ve'in k'maasecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'memshatcha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai hoz Le'amoitim Adonai varech et amo v'shalom Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah U'devar Adonai b'Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo Gadol Adonai iti Umroma Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai HaGedula v'Hagevura v'Tiferet v'Hanitzach v'Haod Ki kol v'shamayim u'va'aretz Ki kol v'shamayim u'va'aretz Lecha Adonai הממלכה והמנהסה לכל ראש.
Our Torah portion this evening is Vayigash, and if you want to keep a finger here in your prayer books for the Torah blessings, we'll come back to those in a second. The section I will be reading from is in the Plaut Torah commentary, beginning with chapter 45, which is on page 288. For those that have been following along in the Joseph narrative thus far, Joseph's brothers are appearing once again before him as our portion opens. Joseph has told them to go back he has to leave Benjamin behind, which the brothers don't want to do. Judah's offering to stay as a slave in his place. And then this is where chapter 45 begins. And we will join in our blessings together. Baruchu et Adonai hamborach, Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen. I'm not caught on my thumb. V'lo yachol Yosef lehit apek lechol hanitzavim, and Joseph could not sort of contain himself or refrain himself before all those who hanitzavim elav, before all of those who stood before him. So this is setting our scene. Vayikra, and he calls out, Hotziu kol ish me'alai, essentially everybody get out. Velo amad ish ito, and there was not a single person standing with him. That's not the word. word that was. V'hit vada Yosef el Echav, when he made himself known to his brothers. Vayitain et kolo bivchi, and his voice gave out in crying. Vayashmein, I can't speak. Vayashmeu Mitzrayim, and all of Egypt heard. Vayishma Beit Paro, and all of the house of Pharaoh heard his voice crying out. Vayomer Yosef, and Joseph said El Echav to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Ha'od Avichai, does my father really live? Velo Yachlu Echav La'anot Oto, and his brothers were not able to answer him. Ki nivhalu mipanav, because they were frightened by his presence. Vayomer Yosef el Echav, and Joseph says to his brothers, Gishu na elai, come gather around me. And they listen. Vayigshu Vayomer, so they gather around him. Vayomer, and he says, Ani Yosef achechem, Asher machartem oti. I'm your brother Joseph. You remember that one that you sold me Mitzrayma, down into Egypt. V'ata, and now, al ta'azvu ve'al yichar be'enechem. Don't, it's two different words for being afraid. Where'd you go? Don't be grieved or angry with yourselves. Ki machartem oti hena, because you sold me down here. Ki limich but it was for the sake of life. Shalacheni Elohim, that God sent me. Lifnechem, before you. Ki zeh shenatayim hara'av, because these 2 years of famine, bekarov haaretz, that have been all over the land, ve'od chamesh shanayim asher ein charish v'kitzir, and there's going to be 5 more years without any plowing or gathering or harvesting. By Ashlicheni Elohim, and God sent me down here, lifnechem, Leshum lachem sha'arit be'eretz, and God sent me before you, and God is getting all of the credit here, sent me before you to basically set up, got ahead of myself, to be a remnant on the earth, and to keep you, v'lahachiyot lachem, and to keep you alive, lifleita gedolah, in this great deliverance. Ve'ata, but now, Lo otem shalachetem oti hena, but now you need to know that it was not you that sent me down here. Ki ha Elohim, but so while he's saying that you need to know you didn't do this, but you need to understand is the implied part. Ki ha Elohim, but that it was God. Vayashmi'eni la'av lefaro, v'la'adon lechol beito, Umshol bechol eretz Mitzrayim, and it was God that made me literally a father to Pharaoh, but put me ahead of Pharaoh and a master of all of Pharaoh's house. And there are lots of synonyms in here. And a ruler over all of the land of Egypt. Maharu ve'alo el aviv, and now you need to hurry up and go to my father. V'amartem elav, and you should say to him, Ko amar bincha Yosef, thus says your son Joseph, Samani Elohim, God has placed me be'eretz Goshen, in the land of Goshen. Nope, skipped a line. Samani Elohim, la'adon lechol Mitzrayim, that God has made me Lord over all of Egypt. Redu Elai, come down to me, all ta'amod. And if you know that word amod, it means not to stand, but in essence, don't stand idly by. Come down quickly. And it keeps going from there, but we will pause our reading for this week at that point and join in the blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. With words of Torah in our midst, we will offer words of healing. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. As a congregation, we pray this Shabbat especially for Carol Forshaw, Charles Fay, Kim Howell, Flo Schmall, Julie Wagner, Eleanor Must, Ann Burke, Catherine Cooper, Ruth Hirsch, Sid Gross, Sharon Hatcher, Dave Cox, Maxine Hallis, Cicely Nathan, Jim Locke, Marty Sacker, Gary Pacernick, and Bob Kahn. If there are other names that we ought to add to our prayer this evening, I invite you to share them aloud or name them in your hearts. And on the back of your prayer sheets, you will find the words to our prayer.
Mishaberach avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Mishaberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mishaberach avotenu, Mishaberach imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim, blessed are you, Adonai, who brings healing to our world. I'll invite you to rise as we turn to page 252 and lift the Torah.
V'zot haTorah shesam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai, yai lai, yai lai.
may be seated.
As we just heard in this week's parashah, we read about the reconciliation between Joseph and his brothers. Joseph is finally ready to address his brothers' despicable behavior, selling him into slavery, causing their father to mourn for a living son. And here we are now. Joseph is second in command in Egypt, and now he finally holds the power in his relationship with his brothers. And he uses that power to test them when he plants stolen goods in Benjamin's possession, where the punishment would be life in an Egyptian prison. In a manner quite unexpected from what we know thus far, Joseph's brother Judah demonstrates tremendous loyalty, leadership, and love for his family by pleading on behalf of his younger brother that he may take Benjamin's place. After Judah's impassioned speech, Joseph, as we heard, he becomes overcome with emotion, and he finally decides it is time that he reveal himself to his brothers. The big reveal was a complete surprise to them. The Torah tells us that the brothers stood there unable to respond. They were so in shock. He wasn't anything that they had expected. They hadn't anticipated that Joseph would be in a leadership position in Egypt. Even if they suspected this, they couldn't have seen him in any other way than the 17-year-old young-faced boy. As a slave, now he would have likely been well-aged and certainly not appear as a man of privilege. But the person who stood before them now was clean-shaven, regal, surrounded by people who were ready to serve him. It was really difficult for them because even though they knew him, he certainly had behaved much differently as a young person. They found it so difficult, in fact, that the commentators have written quite a bit about this. They suggest that Joseph told them to come close to him so that they could actually prove their identity through his circumcision. Yet, in all of this, he had no trouble recognizing them. I think of this sort of as a Clark Kent moment. I know it's a long time ago when Superman was actually in theaters, but I think there are enough TV shows, comics, and the such that the reference is not falling on deaf ears. But how many of us remember watching Superman in disbelief that nobody recognized Clark Kent was Superman, right? Just because he had these glasses and his plain clothes on, but it was so terribly obvious. Why, in this case, was it so hard for the brothers to recognize Joseph, both before the reveal and after? Because even in the Zohar, he didn't look that much different. He is said to always have looked like his mother, that he was an image of her. So how is it that they possibly could not have recognized him just because he was dressed differently? This is, of course, another question the commentators have quite a bit to say about. And one of the commentators, the one that resonates the most with me, is that of Ramban, who's also known as Nachmanides. He was a 13th century Spanish commentator. A lot of time has passed since then, but he was very insightful in his comment. He believes that Joseph's mistaken identity wasn't because of any physical reason. It wasn't the glasses or, changing out of Superman clothes. He says, rather, the reason that Joseph was so invisible to them was due to his brothers' expectations of him. Joseph had anticipated, sooner or later, his brothers would come down to Egypt because of the famine. So perhaps he had an inkling. He, when they arrived, was open to the possibility that it could be then. His brothers, on the other hand, had no reason to expect Joseph to reappear in their lives, ever, really. And in their minds, Joseph was, of course, that annoying little tattletale who bragged about himself through his incredible dreams. He was not well liked, let's just say that. So now that here he is in Egypt, they see him certainly being catered to in a position of power. So much so were they not expecting this that they couldn't recognize him at all. He didn't fit into their expectations of him. Again, this is from a 13th century Spanish commentator. Because it's so long ago, I find it so moving that a powerful message about bias comes from our tradition. Ramban understood that self-imposed expectations or assumptions cause blindness from seeing what and who is right in front of us. It's our own expectations that dictate what we see and what we cannot see. According to Ramban, because the brothers had placed Joseph in a box, they had defined who he was so much that they were unable to see him even when he stood in front of their very eyes. And so too is it with us, because our expectations of others can often inadvertently limit what people can do and how they can be involved in our lives and in our communities. It has the potential to prevent us from entering into relationships. I often talk about this idea of bias towards others, but because of our proximity to New Year's, I wanted to take just a moment to reflect rather on our own expectations of ourselves. The high holidays are a time when we often ask for forgiveness and allow ourselves to see that we are pure and clean of guilt, that we can move forward and accept new opportunities. Fortunately for us, we have more than one New Year, so we have the opportunity to continually look at ourselves and see how much better we can do. And with our possible resolutions, if that's something that's a tradition for you, we are often looking and asking ourselves what is expected, what is within our reach to say for ourselves. I mean, we all know how, I don't remember if you all remember David Spinrad, who was an intern many years ago. He used to be a personal trainer. He would always tell us about just how busy it was in the gym right after New Year's and how, a couple weeks later, it was empty, right? People set up these expectations that they said they could do. On the other hand, there are people, well, first I'll say that was similar to Joseph, right? He had his great big dreams, and he never backed down from who he was going to be. But then, of course, we have the other people who never see the possibilities in what they themselves can accomplish and how they can grow and become and experience growth in a way that they haven't before. I think it's important for us that we give ourselves the opportunity to escape our own preconceived notions of our potential, that we are able to open up our eyes and to give ourselves opportunity. And I want us just to think about, and you don't have to share these with anyone, but I want you to reflect on this past year on something that perhaps you have accomplished, that you have done this last year, that you never imagined you would ever do. And when I say do, I mean get through is all. Sometimes seeming to exist through something difficult is something we never imagined. Whether it's weathering a pain that felt insurmountable to taking on a new challenge. I have to tell you, because many of you were here for Jonah's bar mitzvah, you are aware that my mother is under some certain limitations physically. And I was thinking of this because just this last week we were together and I saw her parasail. Just want to get that in your mind. Parasail, my mother, flying up behind our boat. And I thought to myself, this is something that I would never have imagined could happen. And yet it did. Even something so surprising in our expectations, never would I have looked down a beach and said, wow, that's my mom up there, right? I'll tell you, that never happened. But we should think that about ourselves, right? Who are we to limit that we are always on the ground? Why can't we dream like Joseph did, of big thoughts, of big ideas, of who we can become? We shouldn't limit ourselves any more than we should not limit anyone that we come in contact with. And so I hope that as we enter into this other new year again, that we have the opportunity to really see those who are in front of us, as well as we look inwards and really see ourselves and all of the potential that we have, that we can give them a chance and give ourselves a chance to live up to the full potential that we have and not simply our expectations. With that, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom as well as a Happy New Year. We continue in our service now on page 256, and if you are able, I invite you to please rise as we return the Torah to the Ark.
It's Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomecha meushar deracheha darchenu am v'chol netivoteha shalom Shivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadish Yaminu Chadish Yaminu We continue with the words of Aleinu on page 282.
On page 289, the light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled. It burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance and our life burns down in gutters. There's an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. Our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. We are in a period of Shiva for Joan Weinberger and Marvin Horkin. We are in a period of Shloshim for Dolores Stamper, Levon Stamper, Beverly Cantor, and Susan Walsh. We also remember those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own, who have died at this season in years past, as we observe the yahrzeits for Blanche B. Block, Hyman Bloom, David Blumenthal, Betty Bloomer, Mose Budnick, Rachel Burek, Nathan Kaplan, Isaac Char, Milton E. Feldstein, Dave Finkelman, Isabel Fleece, Abraham S. Freeman, Charles Scott Goldberg, Rosalind P. Green, Max Hurwitz, Helen Hurwitz, Charles Jacobs, Abe Kaplan, Manny Katz, Jean F. Kritzer, Esther Lefkowitz, Pauline Levy, Bert Lieberman, Jeanette Maiman, Jesse Mattingly Sr., Frida M. Matisoff, Naomi Meckler, Elmer L. Moyer, Julius Ullman, Harry B. Patterson, Rhea Bierman Peel, Al Rosen, Rose Bell Ross, Nettie Goldswig Rossett, Jack H. Seidel, Ralph D. Shear, Pauline Schwartz, Amy Schimberg, Gertrude Schoen, Philip Stein, Katie Udelson Sapri, Wilbur Sussman, Stephen James Thal, Sarah Wheeler, and Myra J. Witt. And I invite you to include any other names or perhaps to pronounce them more correctly as my hand goes across the room. I'd like to invite all who are mourning or who are remembering to please rise first. And we as a congregation rise together in support with those sacred words of our tradition known as the Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah ve'alma divra chirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ha'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha berichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing.
We'll close singing together the words of Ein Keloheinu, which you can find on page 322.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Mich Kemalkeinu, Mich Moshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu
Zehayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismecha bo. This is the day that God has created. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. In just a moment, we'll gather together in the hallway for Kiddush and Motzi, and then we'll continue. Hopefully, you'll have an opportunity to talk with some friends as we grab a nash. And again, thank you, Georgianne, for providing that nash for us this evening. We appreciate it. Georgianne Gatsby. I didn't say her last name. We'll continue in the hallway. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.